Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we speak to Shawn Miller with G4 Tequila. We talk all about their lineup, their history, and their wonderful cocktails. This is an absolutely fun conversation. We kind of touch about all things tequila, really. We talk about other tequilas, and, we try not to delve too far into everybody else because we are here to talk about G4 Tequila. And if anybody knows anything about tequila and the pro wrestling world, we all know that Dax Harwood himself loves himself some G4 Tequila. So shout out to Dax Harwood. If you are ever wanting to come on this podcast, I would more than love to talk to you, not only about pro wrestling, but also about tequila, and we could all learn something. So shout out to Dax Harwood. But if you would like to know more about not only Shawn Miller, but G4 Tequila, definitely make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get to find out even more about our guests and also about what is happening on your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So make sure to sign up for our newsletter. So without further ado, here is Shawn Miller with G4 Tequila. Welcome Shawn Miller to the show. He is with G4 Tequila. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for coming on. I mean, G4 Tequila is one of the best tequilas out there, and we were kind of talking about it before we started here. It is genuinely family owned. You guys are into the fourth generation of the family running it, and this has been almost 100-year-old tequila. Tell us the story that is behind G4 Tequila.
Yeah, the story goes back even farther than that. But
oh wow!
So let me just say, my name is Shawn Miller. I'm the managing partner of Package Group. We're the U.S. importers for G4, and I do commonly speak on behalf of the brand. But I'm not a Camarena. I'm a gringo. I live in Michigan, and I've been to the distillery more than 50 times.
Wow.
Felipe refers to me by if you're in Mexico and you don't have a nickname, they don't like you. We have a nickname. It's kind of like a son-in-law. I mean, we're very, very close. But I'm not a Camarena, right? So let's be clear about that. And G4 means fourth generation. That's usually like the first question is what does that name mean? It's kind of a weird name, honestly, right? Is it like a jet plane or what, right? So,
or like to them, drink or something, yeah.
Yeah, so to them it just represents cuatro generación. It's fourth generation, and it's the fourth generation of Felipe's fork of the Camarena family tree to be distilling tequila, and that's what that means. And so when I say Felipe, I mean Felipe Camarena. Felipe Camarena is the distiller and the man who built his distillery called El Pandillo. And what we're actually referring to when we say the fourth generation are his two sons, which are Alan and Gus, and they're both about 30 years old. They're adults. I call them the boys, but they're adults, and they're involved in the business now. Felipe's in his mid 60s, and the Camarena family is a benchmark group. The Camarena family are blood relatives to about 60% of the tequila industry. They represent a large part of what we refer to as Los Altos region of tequila, and the heritage of the family actually founded the region of this particular region that we now call Los Altos. So it's the area around Arandas and Jesus Maria in Jalisco. And this was founded by a man named Pedro Camarena Ramirez. And there is today Pedro Camarena Ramirez VI. So there's a named lineage to this man. But the first Pedro Camarena was the first one to plant and cultivate agave in this region. Then his son, the second, was the first one to distill. And then that's Pedro Camarena II. He had 21 children, and we're talking late 1800s, right? So when there was no television, there was no wrestling matches, there was nothing to do, right? So 21 children, and but only 3 sons. But those 3 sons went on to found 3 of the most important distilleries in Arandas, and one of those is then the grandfather of Felipe Camarena that we were just talking about. So it's a long and very important family heritage. And you know, you mentioned being one of the best tequilas, and no, excluding the big names, but if you're looking really at the quality and the craft tequila, Tequila G4 and Tequila La Fortaleza are 1A or 1B, depending on the style preference you prefer, the best tequila in the world, and that's you won't get too much argument to that.
Right. Now, I guess for those who haven't tasted it before, could you try to describe what G4 tastes like and what people are looking for when they are looking for quality tequila?
Well, it's both simple and complex.
Right.
The hardest thing in the world for me to explain to Americans is what is the flavor of cooked agave. And it's something that if you've not had the opportunity to be at a distillery in Mexico, you've probably never had the opportunity to taste cooked agave. And that's the flavor you're looking for. So it's difficult for me to tell you you're looking for a flavor you've probably never tasted. So we try to make some analogies. So one of the most common analogies people would say is a real, not like from the can with marshmallows, but a real baked sweet potato.
Okay.
And a real baked sweet potato, which a lot of Americans have never had that either, to be honest, right? But an actual yam, actually baked, has a natural sweetness to it, right? It's certainly not sugar sweet, right? But there's a natural sweetness to it, but it also has a lot of characters that we describe as like notes that we describe as like baking spices, right? When it's an actual baked sweet potato, so you get some of those, nutmeggy characters, right? Some of those flavors that you'll find also in agave. Another that is a grilled pineapple. A grilled pineapple will also have some of those same kind of similar characteristics, because you take the sugar out of it, right, when you grill it, and then you add kind of those baked or burned notes to it. So the actual product is very, very simple, and there's a big movement afoot among the craft tequila world for additive free. And traditionally tequilas were additive free. They had 3 ingredients. It was water, it was yeast, and it was this baked agave. And the yeast is for fermentation, and the magic, you talk about craft beers, you talk about the flavor that comes from fermentation, and in the myriads of flavors that can come just from how and what and in the way that you ferment, right? So the magic of fermentation, which happens before distillation in a spirit, but this is a very simple, unique, natural flavor profile. And El Pandillo, which is the name of the distillery that Felipe runs, and Pandillo was the name of, it means gang, basically. Oh. And this was the name of one of Felipe's grandfather's favorite bull. He was so strong like a gang, right? So El Pandillo. So the logo is a bull, and Pandillo is the name of the distillery. But this distillery, along with La Fortaleza, which I just mentioned, were actually the models for the program that a group called Tequila Matchmaker has used to define what is an additive-free tequila. What were the models that they're using? So this is confirmed or verified to be an additive-free product, and it's natural and just really, really good. So you'll get tons of that cooked agave flavor. You'll get those baking spices in the flavor, and then you'll also, you mentioned having some experience in wine, and tequila is unique in spirits. If we're talking about bourbon, you're talking corn that came from somewhere, and then it's basically crushed by the barrel, right? And really what you're tasting in bourbon is barrel, right? And with tequila, you've got, a spirit that has a real element of terroir. So where it is grown in Mexico, the soil conditions, the type of climate over the years that it took to grow, it takes about 7 or 8 years, by the way, to grow an agave. So very different than wheat and corn. It's, so the water that's used, the environment, there's a real element of water type and terroir that if you get nerdy about tequila, you can, in fact, pick out those flavors.
Yeah, I know as much, like I was telling you, I was in wine sales for 14 years, and people would get very nerdy, obviously, when it comes to wine. And then I know recently I've been hearing it. So you asked earlier about how the wrestling tie-in was going to happen, and I have it for you. There is a wrestler. His name is Dax Harwood. He's part of this tag team called FTR, and he is a huge tequila fan. So he used to have a podcast called FTR with Dax Harwood, where they would have a tequila minute where he would open up a new tequila or one he's already had, but he's telling it for the first time for the fans. And he brought y'all's up, and he said it's literally it might be his favorite tequila. So,
admittedly, I haven't watched a lot of wrestling since I was a kid and used to watch on Sunday on TBS, but if that dates me, it does. It dates me. But, when, I'm like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan era guy, right? But, when actually, I think I recognize that name as somebody that interacts with G4 on Instagram, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Even better.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. That is, I guarantee he would, if you guys are looking for sponsorships,
there's your degrees of separation for the moment.
Exactly. Well, he's actually how I heard y'all too, because I had never really, and I love tequila as well, especially craft tequila like you're talking about, because most people think of tequila, they're just doing shots, or they're having it in a margarita, or even a tequila sunrise or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with putting good tequila in a cocktail, but
for sure,
good tequila is great for sipping, great for having with a cigar, having, when you're out on the patio or whatever, just throw a couple rocks in there, or even whiskey stones, and just sip it, because, that's what it was made for. It's not, Jose Cuervo. It's not, even Patron at this point is so mass marketed and mass made that it's not for just sipping. It's for shooting, adding to other drinks, stuff like that. But when it comes to y'all's tequila, you guys it's literally the craft of it, and it's all about that taste and the taste profiles.
It is, and I think, and the reason I bring up additive free and why there's such a movement of additive free is that, frankly, the big names in tequila, and I mean the difference in sales of these brands to what the type of people that I hang out with and products that we sell is staggering. I mean, we're talking millions of cases of difference in sales. But if you're talking sipping, right? If you're nosing a tequila and it smells sweet, if it smells like frosting, like a wedding cake, right? If it smells of vanilla, again, like a frosting character or a bubble gum character, or like